thank you so much for making time in your busy Wednesday to be here today. My name's Anita Parker. I'm one of the educational developers at the Center for Teaching and Learning. And the title of today's webinar is What is Hybrid Teaching? Strategies for Planning and Delivering a Hybrid Course. The presentation portion of the webinar will be recorded and will be available on the CTL website about a week or so from now. My intention for the upcoming 10 minutes or so is to clarify what is hybrid teaching, highlight some of the benefits, the merits of it, provide you with some broad strategies or food for thought when planning a hybrid course. And after that, I'll facilitate a Q&A to hear your questions, your concerns, and to learn what resources and supports that would help you teach hybrid. Buzzwords and phrases are very plentiful in higher education, and here are just a few that come into my conversations regularly with instructors at the University of Alberta. So by no means is this a comprehensive list. I'm sharing this word cloud with you to let you know if by chance you sometimes feel overwhelmed navigating our current teaching circumstances, this just might be one reason why that is. The phrase hybrid teaching has been increasingly used by instructors at the University of Alberta over the past academic year. It's a situation that instructors have found themselves in, and with limited resources and time to plan and prepare, may have been figuring it out on the fly. Hybrid at the U of A is a course delivery mode where an instructor teaches in a physical space, such as a classroom, a lab, or a clinical setting, with in-person students and remote students in attendance simultaneously. Remote students are there by way of video conferencing. So let's first situate the term hybrid among other course delivery modes, namely traditional, fully online, and blended. At first, all of these modes are most easily sorted into time and place. Synchronous instructors are together at the same time. Asynchronous, they're not. Instructors and students are engaged with the course at different times. In person, instructors and students are together in the same place, and remote, they are not. Instructors and students are geographically dispersed. Traditional course delivery mode is this: synchronous, in person, same time, same place. A fully online course looks like this. It's remote, as you can see down in the bottom right, but it can differ, as you see on the left, in terms of time. It may be fully synchronous, fully asynchronous, or it might be a mix. Blended learning, let me just spend a moment on this before I get to hybrid, has a lot to do with time. Students have synchronous time with an instructor, which can be in person or remote, and students engage with the course content on their own time as well, or asynchronously. Blended learning also refers to the blend of course activities. What course components are done at certain times with or without the instructor present? And the blend is determined by the instructor asking the question, when do students need me the most? What kinds of things should we be doing together? And what can the students do on their own when I'm not around? In the beginning of blended learning, well over a decade ago, the term blended and hybrid were used synonymously, interchangeably. And really, the word hybrid just means a mixture of some things, and those some things can be anything. You'll still find this in the literature and other sources today. However, presently at the University of Alberta, we are mostly using the word hybrid to mean what I mentioned a moment ago, when the instructor is in a physical space with some students, and some students are attending remotely. Hybrid teaching is good. It is a good way to offer a course in many contexts. It may not feel good at times as you, the instructor, are on a steep learning curve of how to make it happen in the moment as you're troubleshooting some technology issues. And it may not, and maybe you feel it's not a good delivery mode for your course at all. But overall, hybrid teaching has plenty of benefits. And here are just a few. Accessibility. Students don't need to miss class if they can't come to class for whatever reason. And this accessibility also has important advantages for the university as a whole for reasons of scalability and resilience to future disruptions. Flexibility and motivation when students have choice over some aspect of their learning. And in this case, it's just the choice of how they're going to attend class. The theory of self-determination tells us that they may be more motivated, more engaged in the course, and less likely to drop out. Social presence. The beauty of hybrid teaching is that it's synchronous. It's real time. It's a concerted effort to be together, to have back and forth discussions, guided problem solving, student presentations, the building of relationships, and the building of a learning community. Quality education. There's two ways that hybrid teaching contributes to the quality of the student experience. First, hybrid teaching requires planning and likely some professional development as well. It's not easy. Like anything non-traditional, it requires you to think ahead, to be prepared for class, to make optimal use of technology. Because of this reality of more behind the scenes work by the instructor, there's a greater chance for a higher quality learning experience for students. And second, hybrid teaching encourages active learning. The impetus for bringing in-person and remote students together at the same time is to have them do something together, do something that's student-centered and authentic, rather than simply providing one-way lecture content. Although hybrid teaching has been happening long before the pandemic, it's one example of an innovation that has been driven, has been fast-tracked by disruption. And today I have just a few tips or food for thought when you find yourself in a hybrid teaching situation. And my first tip for you is this: to plan your class for online delivery instead of in-person delivery. It's easier to plan for your remote students and then integrate your in-person students rather than the other way around. Plan to teach on Zoom or Google Meet, where you and your students use eClass as a portal into your course. And that's why I have the eClass right in the middle of the screen here, just like you did in the early days of the pandemic when everything was shut down. But now you just happen to be on campus in your classroom teaching on Zoom, and you just happen to have some students in the class with you and some students at home. You project your computer screen to the front of the room, including Zoom, eClass, your slides, your digital whiteboard, whatever teaching applications you use. Just to say that AV, audiovisual, is likely to be your biggest hurdle. And one thing that I've learned over the past 2.5 years with working with the instructors at the U of A is that hurdles do little to slow instructors down who are determined to guide students in their learning. Next tip, building on the quality education point from a moment ago, can you minimize lecturing and aim for more active learning instead? A one-way delivery of content is easily done in a hybrid classroom with the right hardware and software. It doesn't matter who's there and who's at home. As long as your students can see and hear what you're presenting, your job is done. However, your efforts at hybrid can go much farther. A fully didactic approach might only encourage students to stay home, and you might find yourself alone in the classroom. So active learning during class time involves students discussing something with a partner, maybe in small groups, maybe working together on a document or some other kind of deliverable. So how can you implement active learning in a hybrid way? How can you organize groups? Sure, in-person students can work in groups in the classroom, no technology required. You can put the remote students into breakout rooms, but can you put them into groups together? You absolutely can, with a little bit of pre-planning, thinking about the technology and consistency. Having a digital collaborative space, such as a shared Google Doc or a Jamboard, can help bring their groups of students together as well. And perhaps this sounds complicated, but I assure you that students know what they're doing, and it's likely something that you and the students can figure out together. Consistency is the key in running in-class active learning activities. My next tip for you is to be a liaison. You are a link between the in-person and the remote students. Video, audio, the seeing and the hearing can be an issue in facilitating a whole class discussion. Likely the room you're in won't have amazing technology like this image that I've been showing throughout the presentation, which means you'll be taking on the role of a liaison between the two groups. When facilitating a whole class discussion, make sure you call on the in-person and the remote students as equitably as you can. Repeat what was said. Repeat the question that a student asks. Repeat the response that another student provides. This isn't a bad thing. You repeating provides more thinking time for students, which can lead to greater contribution and greater understanding. And your role as an air traffic controller or maybe an orchestra conductor, it might feel like, will become easier and maybe even fun over time. There is no doubt that teaching hybrid has the best chance of success when an instructor has what they need pedagogically and technologically. And at this point, I'm going to provide you with a list, but I won't go into much detail. So it's somewhat of a checklist, a wish list, perhaps, for the next time you find yourself in a hybrid teaching situation. And these aren't from the top of my head. They're from literature. They're from articles, and my sources are at the end. My last slide, which I'll make sure gets into the video. Pedagogically, you need time, PD, and resources for course planning and delivery. Why? So that you can provide an equitable learning experience for both student groups, so that you can figure out the complexities of how you're bringing these two groups of students together. For example, how do you ensure that remote students feel included in group discussions and activities? How do you deal with technical issues quickly while the in-person students are there and no technology required for them? Technologically, you need adequate audio and visual hardware and software in the classroom. The remote students need the right tech at home as well. And both the instructor and the students need to be proficient, relatively proficient with this technology, which likely means you'll appreciate having some tech support on hand, at least at the beginning. And in your back pocket, it's nice to have a plan for lost connections and other issues. And finally, be nice to yourself. Teaching hybrid, it's doable. It's valuable. It's fun. It's one of the ingredients, one of the cobblestones on our post-pandemic higher education path. It takes planning, practice, a dose of humbleness, and a growth mindset. And here's the slide with the resources so that you can see the articles that I have there, and you can source them out and then know that I'm available for you at any time as well.